Before we take a quick ad break, Shay, can I just ask you about Newcastle briefly, because it was, well, eventful time to say the least. You were there from 97 to 09. You had 13 different managers. I mean, for the 13 different managers. So Bobby Robson's 5 years jump out. Doug Leash brought you there. You had Graham Souness. There was Joe Kinnear. There was Ruud Gullit. There was Sam Allardyce. I mean, later on, Roberto Mancini, obviously various international managers as well. Which manager got the best from you? I mean, it'd be tempting to presume it's Bobby Robson, that was the golden period in your career. Who was the manager that you enjoyed playing under the most, and why?
Well, probably Kenny. Kenny was a big influence in my career. Kenny Dalglish brought me to Blackburn when I was 18. I left Celtic, obviously, at 18. And Kenny brought me to Blackburn, and my first game actually was a bit of a story, but we had a friendly pre-season game, and I had the medical that day, signed the contract. It was such a busy day, and that night we had the game. I think we lost 3-2 or something, and I conceded 2 goals. My fault. It was like, first person I met the next morning in the corridor of the training ground was Kenny, and he goes, "Good job, you signed that contract yesterday, didn't he?" But he was like, he was just winding me up, like, you know. But he was, what he did say to me was an good bit of advice. He says, never get too down. We all make mistakes. You know, he missed chances or whatever it was when he played, and he says never go too down and never go too high away on yourself as well. Just try and keep that sort of level. You know, don't go too down, don't go too high. If you make a great game, you're not the best keeper in the world. You have to keep proving yourself. You know, so it was good advice. But Kenny then brought me to Newcastle. You know, I was 21 when I went to Newcastle, and he gave me the #1 jersey, and he put his trust in me. And you know, I look at young keepers now I work with, and there's a young keeper trying to get, he's 23. I can't get him out because people say he's got no experience. And now Kenny gave me the jersey at such a big club in Newcastle, and obviously I must have proved to him that I was good enough to play. But that takes a lot of, I don't know what's kind of say the right word, but a lot of confidence to give this young guy the shirt, you know. So I owe a lot to Kenny. But you mentioned, Joe, about Bobby Robson as well. Obviously, a great manager. And one of the things that sticks out probably most with Bobby is his man management skills. You know, what a fantastic motivator. What a, you know, get the best out of people and players. And I think when you're managing at that elite level, sometimes I think it is man management. Yes, we all talk about tactics and analysing opposition and different things, but I think a lot of it to do with man management. At the time, we'd Shearer and Bellamy up front, and you know, they maybe didn't see eye to eye all the time, and you could see Bobby going different things, saying to Alan, like, "Oh, don't mind him, he's a wee mouthpiece, he's always chatting and shouting off and all this kind of stuff. You know, you just get in the box, put the ball in the net." And then you go up to Bellamy and go, "Don't mind him, he's getting old, you're doing all his running and all this kind of stuff." And then come a Saturday, they were brilliant together, you know, just little things like that. You could see him going around different players and different individuals and self-motivating or whatever it is, motivating, getting the best for the team. But yeah, some great memories at Newcastle, a fantastic club.
Yeah, huge, and you know, you were playing such great stuff. Why did Ruud Gullit go so badly, for instance? Big name, you know, you could have seen that being a match made in heaven in some respects, his ego in the club, and you know, but it didn't seem to work. And I know he dropped you for an FA Cup final as well.
Yeah, got the goalkeeping coach to tell me. Still not got over that, Joe, as you can probably tell. It's actually the other side of the coin is lack of man management. You know, that's probably the 2 examples. I talk about Bobby Robson, brilliant man management, and then, you know, Ruud Gullit having very little, or maybe, I don't know, just didn't have I mean, the last game, I don't know if you remember the last game he played Sunderland. I was injured actually, but he dropped Duncan Ferguson, Alan Shearer for the game. I think it was like, I don't know, it just didn't click. You know, he says he wanted to bring sexy football to Newcastle, and you know, following Bobby Robson as well was a tough act, Joe, to follow. Sure. But his man management skill wasn't great. I mean, you know, I played in the semi-final, and I was looking forward to the final, and he told the goalkeeping coach to tell me. So a couple of days before the game, the goalkeeping. So I felt at least I wanted an explanation from the manager why I didn't play and why he wasn't picking me. You know, so I didn't agree with the decision. Didn't like it. Didn't like him for giving it.
Did he give you a reason through the goalkeeping coach?
I think he said it was McKeegan at the time. He said that I was putting, you know, McKeegan, maybe it wasn't the best, but I didn't think it was just a reason to drop you for the final. I remember playing well in the semi-final. You know, you always think that you played every game up to the final. I think me now as a coach would think, you know, well, this guy deserves to play because he's one of the reasons we got there in the first place. But you know, he was the manager. He made that decision, and of course I didn't agree with him.
Yeah, and so
George, just on that.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, Packie.
Just coming in. It's amazing, you know, about communication, leadership, about how one manager has got that ability to connect with players, and another manager, even though he might know everything about the game and so on. And the young manager that's now with Leipzig, the young boy, he's 33 years old. He had a great statement about, he's talking about at the level that Shay was playing at and I played at, it's about 30% about tactics, it's 70% about psychology and getting the players to do what you want and building that relationships. And I think that's the lesson.
And so, because Ruud Gullit's been around dressing rooms his whole life, Shay, for instance, and would it just be a case of not able to quite click with people and he's trying to, or would he just not even be trying to kind of click with players one-on-one?
I mean, looking back now, you probably look, when you're playing, you're focused on your own personal position and how you were dealt with as a person. I don't know, he made a better relationship with other players. I remember telling you about the Duncan Ferguson Shearer got dropped for the big derby against Sunderland. Well, Alan was in, I think, at 8:15 the next morning outside his office, and Duncan Ferguson was sitting there ready. So they're both wanting to sort of go and rip his head off or whatever because they were raging, you know. But I don't think he had that. I don't know what is it. Maybe it's different managers, different ideas. Some managers would drop you and not tell you, and other managers would pull you in aside. And especially, you know, mentioning the cup final, you know, I think it would have been better if the manager spoke to me face to face and said this is why, and you know, I would respect that more. But maybe his style of management was, no, I pick 11 players. I don't have to explain myself to anyone. I'm the boss. You know, this is my job to do, and you got to get on with it. But I don't think it's the best of the people. I think, as I say, man management skills is massive in football and probably any sport. And I think it's key to get that balance right. I know you can't explain every week why someone's not playing, but I think if you've had a long run of games in the team, then I think you at least deserve that, you know, conversation with them.
And Shay, Roberto Mancini was talked about as having terrible management skills by everywhere. Like, I think the quote is he fell out with everybody at the club at Man City, and yet somewhere in the midst of that, obviously manages to make the breakthrough from a Premier League point of view. So how does that type of dynamic work for a Mancini? Because it obviously worked to some extent.
Yeah, it was a strange one because Mancini was a guy who I don't know, it seemed like they thrive on falling out with people every single day, be arguing with the physio, the doctor, the chef, the kitman, anybody. It was a weird sort of way to work, I felt. You know, Manchester City is a fantastic place to work, great club, great owners, you know, they give the full support to the players and the staff, and it felt that he was lighting fires everywhere instead of putting fires out. You know, he seemed to want to, I don't know if it was just an Italian thing or whatever, but he didn't see eye to eye with that many people. I think that's probably one of the reasons he left in the end, because he fell out with so many players and people at the football club. And I never really understood that. Me personally, I played with him for I think it was six months. Joe Hart was on loan at Birmingham, and he brought him back then, I think, this summer. And after one of the games I played, he says, "Oh, Shay Given's one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the world." And then Joe Hart came back in the summer. I never played a game. It was like, so how can you go from the top 5 to not even play? I think it was maybe in Oxford in the League Cup or something, and didn't even play in that. You know, Joe, and he made loads of other changes. It was clear that he wanted me out of the building. Yeah. And I never really could have understood that, and never really overly explained why that was the case. But that was a tough one to take. I remember going back the following season, I'd left, I went to Aston Villa, and Man City got drew against Man United at home in the FA Cup 3rd round. And Pantilimon started in goal. I was like, couldn't even play again last year against Oxford, and Pantilimon's playing now, you know. So I don't know if it's personal against me, or he just wanted me out the door, or thought I was, you know, maybe too much of a leader in the changing room or something. I never really understood it, Joe. I wasn't happy with it, but that's his decision again.
Yeah, unless he felt that conflict creates a certain energy. I mean, it might be a great energy, and long term it mightn't work. Maybe there's just a feeling, get everybody on edge here. And, you know, sometimes, Packie, you think Mourinho does that a little bit at times, that maybe that's the method. But I can't say I'd like to play under it personally for 10 years.
No, but every manager is slightly different, you know, and sometimes you have to adapt to be fit in with those managers. But you can see Mancini, you know, his personality on the sideline. I was just watching Inter the other night, and I don't think he stopped talking and shouting and going mad for the whole game. And it's obviously more obvious now because there's no crowd in the place. You know, and it's quite incredible. Different managers have got. I suppose it's about winning. It's about getting a group of players that's actually going to fit into that and that. But yeah, I think the way the game's gone now, personally, I think you have to now study the game a lot more from the sideline. You almost have got to treat players in a completely different way than what you were treated when you played. And I'm not a manager. I've not been in that dressing room now for a while,
Sure.
but I do talk to managers from a coach education point of view. And I can see that they all have a different way of doing things, their own personality, and how do they create the right environment, the high performance environment around about them. The use of staff now, I think, is absolutely crucial also, and how you use staff to actually maybe fill in some of the gaps that you don't have. All of those things matter, and that. But yeah, it's interesting how it works. And you're right about Man City. Maybe it's creating conflict to get the best out of people. I don't know. Does it work? Sometimes, depending on the culture. But does it work all the time? Probably not. And that's why these guys keep moving maybe on also from club to club fairly quickly.
Shay, one last person I want to ask you about, and then we'll take a break, is a figure that we hear a lot about and not very much from, and that's Mike Ashley. Did you have personal dealings with him? How did you find him?
Not great, to be honest.
Right.
The only sort of dealings I really had, Joe, was towards the end of my time at Newcastle. He brought me into the office and with my solicitor, and we sat down, and he says, we want to make Shay, the captain, the pillar of this club. Alan, I think I just retired Alan Shearer. We want to keep him long term. And I was like, okay, right. And I says, well, it was Michael Kennedy actually, who sadly passed away recently. But
yeah,
I said to Michael, I don't want to be involved in any financial chat. Like that's where you have an agent or a lawyer or whatever to do that. So I stood out of the office then, and I got in the car outside the training ground, and Michael was nearly behind me about a minute later. He goes, well, you'll not be staying here, he said. That's the exact words he said to me. It was basically they wanted just to extend my contract on the exact same contract, money-wise or whatever. And it's not, and it's not so much down to money. It's kind of like this opportunity to join Manchester City was there. So we had a club who were huge ambitions with great owners who wanted to challenge for top honours, or stay at Newcastle. I was there nearly 12 years, which had great memories, great times, but it felt like a sort of rudderless ship floating along with the owner. They were selling the best players, getting free transfers in. This wasn't the Newcastle I joined when I was 21, when they just came second in the Premier League. We were playing Champions League football. We were signing some of the best players in the world. It was a fantastic club to be at. So it just fizzled out with me and with Mike Ashley more than the actual club. Had there been an owner there with huge ambitions and stuff, then I probably would never have left Newcastle. But it just wasn't a good fit in the end, and I felt there was a big opportunity to join Manchester City.
Am I right in remembering it basically came to a point where you had to hand in a transfer request?
Yeah, that was another good one. I woke up the next day and it was like quotes came from the club, obviously through Mike Ashley, saying that we had no other option to let him go because he put a transfer request in, and the truth of the matter was I had a 10% sell-on fee, so I don't know what it went for, 6 or 7 million or something. I think Manchester City paid for me, so it was a lot of money, 600 or 700 grand for me to. Basically, it was a gun to my head. If you don't sign this, you're not getting the move to start with, and he's obviously saving 600 or 700 grand as well, which, don't get me wrong, is a hell of a lot of money, but
yeah,
to a billionaire, I suppose, and given 12 years of your sort of life and service, and I think it was like 460 or 70 games or whatever at the club, you'd felt you'd at least would had some sort of thanks for your service or your time at the club or whatever. But it was only that he made out in the media that that they had no opportunity, no way of keeping me at the club, and it was quite the opposite of him.
Okay, so that's how it works. So I just read in the paper, Shay Given, selfish bugger that he is, wants to get out of the club. He's handed in a transfer request, says, let me out of here. And what's actually happened is, we'll take the sign-on fee and you've to hand in the transfer request.
It was purely a financial thing from the club in the end, yeah. So Mike Ashley was just rinsing the last pennies he could get out of the deal, really.
Right, okay. It's interesting, all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Fellas, we're going to take a short ad break. I do want to talk to you about goalkeeping and just the position has changed so much. And then a final thought from you both on Irish football's got a big kind of couple of months coming up. So we'll take a short break. We have with us Shay Given and Packie Bonner. This is the first OTB Sports Remote Roadshow in partnership with Cadbury. You can check out cadburyfc.com for updates on promotions and giveaways. We're back with the lads in just one moment.